Okay, well, hello everyone. This is Chris Decker coming to you again with a quick update for the June 18th, 2020 weekly claims data that just came out for the state of Nebraska and for the counties comprising Omaha, at least on the Nebraska side of the border. Um, so this will be an extremely short video, largely because I just want to give you a quick update of the data, sort of give you my sense as to what some of the last 2 weeks have meant in terms of unemployment and job growth that I expect to be coming through in the state and local reports for the month of May, which will actually be coming out tomorrow, June 19th, and I'm going to do another video updating those job forecasts at that point. So where are we currently at? Well, today we got news from the Department of Labor that 4,869 new claims for unemployment were filed in the state of Nebraska. And that's up a little bit from last week. Last week we were at 4,697. Now, that little uptick that we saw, and it is, it's still not great news because it is still a very high number. 4 or 5 thousand new people unemployed is not good news, but there could be some concern that maybe the downward trend we've been experiencing for well over a month now may be at an end. I don't think that's true. This uptick that we're seeing here, going from 46.97 to 48.69 in the past week, I don't think is indicative of any trend upward. I think this is just an artifact of the data. A lot of the increases in unemployment were coming in the manufacturing sector and some of the food and accommodation services sectors. The manufacturing does include food processing and meat processing plants. Again, I don't think this is an acceleration upwards, just kind of a retrenchment. I still think that the long-term trend is going to bring these weekly claims down. So while I did underpredict new claims for this week by about 316, I overpredicted the previous week by about 210. So the net effect over the last 2 weeks in terms of my forecast versus total claims in the last 14 days have been about 9,566. I had forecast about 9,460. So I had underpredicted by only 106. So it's not a huge miss over the last couple of weeks. And if you look over the last 3 weeks, the forecast and the total claims has been almost perfectly accurate. I'm over predicting by about 2. And that's well within margin of error. And even over the last 4 weeks, over the last month worth of data, it does look as though I'm under predicting by about 114. So those aren't large misses in terms of the actual data versus the forecast. You can kind of see that here. If you look at the way the blue line is kind of dancing around the forecast line, the blue line's the actual claims, we're still pretty much on track, which is again why I think this downward trend that we're seeing is going to continue. I still think we're moving towards the long-term equilibrium values for claims for unemployment in the state, which is about 1,500. I think we're going to get there, perhaps a little slower than people would like, but I think we're moving in the right direction. We still have the phased reopening, at least in Nebraska and in the city of Omaha in particular. New coronavirus cases have not been spiking recently. The last few days worth of data haven't been that bad. Still not perfect. I'd love to get those new infection rates down to zero, but if you look at some of the county data coming out, we're still seeing some new cases, but those cases have been smaller than they were, say, a month ago. So I think all of that's good. Hopefully that means that people are adhering to social distancing and wearing masks and so forth, because that's really the way we're going to sustain this downward trajectory in unemployment, initial claims for unemployment. Taking a quick look at what's going on in the Omaha counties, Douglas, Sarpy, and Washington. Um, 2 weeks ago, we had about 1,906 new claims for unemployment insurance. I just recently started forecasting those claims for those three counties, and my model had overpredicted by about 85. Today, we found out this past week there were about 1,962 um, new claims for unemployment. My forecast had been about 1835, so I had underpredicted by about 127. Over the last couple of weeks, that's about 42 uh, in terms of a difference. If you were to take the total over the last 2 weeks, which is about 3,868, and you compare that with the forecast over the last 2 weeks, which is about 3,826, I had under forecast by about 42 claims. Again, not too bad. Still, I think that slow decline is the best way to be anticipating what's going to be happening in Omaha as well. So I think the trend is still in the right direction. I don't think this uptick that we saw this week is indicative of any upward trends to come. So we'll be watching the next few weeks. If we start seeing some consistent increases here, then we may need to rethink the recovery. But right now, I think the recovery is still on track. So I do think that in terms of a forecast, we're going to continue to see some declines. In Nebraska, I think we could get by the end of the month. So this will bring us down to about the end of June, early July, when we see 2 weeks from now the unemployment claims. I think for the city of Omaha, we're going to be under 1,700. That's my current guess. And I think for the state, I didn't emphasize this before, but I think for the state we could be right around 4,000, give or take a few claims, which again is still indicative of that downward trend. I still think there's good reason for that. So at this point, I'm not going to respecify my model. I'm not going to respecify my forecast. I'm going to let the forecast run its course at least through the end of June to see what happens next. Now, like I said, tomorrow, Friday, June 19th, we're going to get our first look at how the month of May looked in terms of jobs for the state of Nebraska and for the Omaha Metropolitan Statistical Area from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I've been calling for the last few weeks now, forecasting that we're going to see an uptick in jobs in May, at least relative to April. My current forecast is pretty conservative on that front. However, I do think that May could look pretty good relative to April. If the national numbers that we saw a couple of weeks ago are any indication, then that's certainly going to be the case. May will look very good. Relative to April. Of course, April was so horrendous where the economy shut down and jobs just fell off this cliff. But I do think we're going to get some of those jobs back. And one of the reasons why I'm very optimistic on that is I've been continuing to track this continuing claims series that the Nebraska Bureau of Labor has been publishing. The number of Nebraskans that are continuing to receive unemployment after they've made their initial claim, so this is subsequent weeks of continuing to receive unemployment, those numbers are on a decline. You can see that trend going back to the end of April all through May. This is one of the reasons why I think May is going to look pretty good in terms of job growth. I think a lot of people are coming off furlough in May. I also think that's going to continue into June. Maybe not as robust as May, but I do think we're going to continue to see some jobs get added. So when we see the June numbers, which unfortunately won't come out until the middle of July for the state and for the city, I do think those June numbers are going to look pretty good. Again, relative to April, I think we're climbing out of this hole. So overall, right now, I'm feeling fairly optimistic about how well the models are performing and what the data is suggesting about the recovery of the Nebraska economy and for the city of Omaha as well. Again, I'm going to emphasize this downward trend and these continuing Nebraskans receiving unemployment is a very good sign. Either these people are leaving the labor force or more likely they're getting their jobs back. People are coming off furlough. You may even start seeing some actual fresh job hiring going on. This last week in particular looked very good. So even though the initial claims were up by a couple of hundred in the state, you could see the way the continuing claims dropped dramatically. between last week where we were at 58,000, now we're down to 55,000. I think that's good news for people coming back into the job market. So hopefully this means the economy is recovering. Now, again, I'm going to emphasize this like I do in all of my videos. We just want to maintain some vigilance and trying to keep this virus under control. We don't want any spikes. We don't want our state or our city to experience what's going on in places like, well, Florida, for example, we're hearing a lot about lately. In Oklahoma, we're seeing, if you look at some of those COVID-19 cases, they are escalating, and that's not good news. It's not happening here in Nebraska. At least not yet, and I don't think it will, because I think as a population we're being pretty smart about the way we manage these things. So I'm hoping that we can continue to maintain the social distancing and so on. But right now, all eyes are going to be on the May report coming out tomorrow, and I think the focus then is going to be right on to June and into July. Can we get a summer of recovery after the disastrous spring we've had? So far, I'm optimistic. So I will have an employment forecast update, if not tomorrow, June 19th. Then Saturday, June 20th, I hope to produce a video where I can go into some detail, and I'm hoping I can come back to you guys with some good news. All the data is suggesting that recovery is still in play. So if anyone's concerned that we had this uptick in initial claims this week, I don't want you to be too concerned about that. I don't think that's indicative of a new trend upward in unemployment claims. I think it's more of an aberration than anything else. I still think the trend is downward and the recovery is still in place. Time will tell. So with that, I will end this video, and I will be back with some updates very shortly. Thank you for your time and interest.